Hello, everybody. It's Emily Milling. I'm the host of The Ultimate Creative, and I'm here today with my guest,
Aba Amuquandoh.
Yes! Aba is like one of the most talented writers and performers I have ever met in my life. She's making me laugh all the time. We're in the Second City Conservatory program together. So we met a couple of months ago, and like Aba just blows me away every time she gets on stage or gets up in front of everyone to start performing. So I asked her here today. Well, it's true, but I asked you here today, Aba, to figure out how you managed to do all of this stuff. You have this really thriving performance and writing career, and originally, I wanted to learn all about this just for my own selfish reasons, to figure out how you do it and how I could also do it. And then I thought, well, this might be a really good opportunity for me to share this with a bunch of people who are looking to do the same thing. So, without further ado, please introduce yourself and tell us all about how the heck you got started with performing.
Well, thank you for that phenomenal intro. Honestly, there's nothing that makes me feel better than when a friend just talks me up like that. That's so nice. I basically started performing in elementary school. I was doing all, those little rinky-dink school plays. I think my first performance was You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And I wasn't a real character. I was in the choir. But I've always kind of had a love for performing. My parents are very funny people. My mom wanted to be an actor when she was younger. So I think I was just always naturally inclined towards the performing arts. And in high school, I became more serious about acting. I did the Sears Festival, training, that kind of stuff. And then I went to U of T for drama. I trained as an actor. And in my second last year, I got into sketch comedy. And I started performing with the UC Sketch Follies, which included a group of my closest friends. And after that, these same friends forced me to do stand-up. And right. I started doing stand-up with the help of a lot of really great queer and femme creatives in the city, like Anna Simone George and Coco Glore, and countless others who gave me a space to practice and work on my material.
So I want to hear a little bit more about this play that you did. So it is I Can't Trust Anyone. Everyone hurts me. And yeah. It is an award-winning play. Wow. Tell me all about this, the whole process from conception to pre-production to production to post-production to the next thing.
Yeah, so so my friend Celeste and I, we were hanging out in their apartment one day, and they were basically just like, hey, you want to write a play together? And I was like, yeah, sure. This was in, I believe, 2017, probably November or December of 2017. And so we agreed to start on this project together. And we started writing it specifically for the U of T Drama Festival, which is a festival that happens every year. I believe that right at the beginning of the second semester, around February. And so we were preparing to do this play, and we had an idea of what we wanted to talk about. We kind of wanted the theme to surround friendship and this idea of how you hold people that you idolize accountable. And the reason why we really wanted to talk about that specifically is because it was kind of the first time people had been talking openly about, these different allegations that were coming out against very important men in the acting industry, both in the U.S. and in Canada. It was the beginning of the Me Too movement, or not the beginning of it, but when it really started gaining traction in the mainstream. And so we wanted to kind of write about it because the beginnings of our friendship, Celeste and I, was via Twitter. I mean, we were already friends through sketch comedy, but I would basically be like, wow, I love this actor. And they'd DM me and be like, he's a rapist.
Oh no.
Right? It was like
Yeah.
every week or 2 weeks, like my hopes were getting shattered. Because another allegation would come out against like, you know, a comedian I idolized or like an actor I really loved. So we really did have an interest in that, in discussing this new like cultural phenomenon that was happening at the time. So the play is about a group of friends who end up at this restaurant one evening after seeing their favorite their favorite artist perform live in concert, and the artist's name is I believe it was Kay Relly, which is a play on R. Kelly. But they end up at this restaurant and they're kind of reliving the concert and what their favorite parts were, and they get a barrage of notifications and emails talking about how there are allegations against this man, and they kind of go through this conversation about cancel culture and whether or not it is effective, and this conversation about canceling celebrities is a microcosm of the things that are actually going on in their real life, which is them trying to grapple with canceling, not necessarily canceling, but distancing themselves from the people in their real lives who have hurt them or who haven't been helpful to them, and who have kind of contributed to the pain and sadness that they've felt or that have affected them and shaped them. And it's really social media heavy. It's really internet based. It's really for people, I think, who are like logged on to those things and often think about those things or talk about those things among their friends. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things I really love about your writing and what you bring to your performance, even if it's just improv, not just improv, but like especially in improv, is that you're able to layer in so many elements of social commentary, like without even trying. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated with how you're able to do this. What do you think it is that that allows you to do that?
I think from a very young age, my parents were always very, very, very like vocal about me understanding my background and my positionality being like a Black person, especially because I grew up in Brampton when there were no people of color. Like I don't think a lot of people realize that when I was living in Brampton in like when I was like 5 in 2000, there weren't a lot of Black people. There weren't a lot of brown people. It didn't really start being like a brown suburb until 2000 and like, I'd say like 6. That's when I noticed that a majority of the people around me weren't just white. And my parents were always vocal about me understanding that I'm always going to have it harder than people who aren't marginalized. So it's always been something that I'm painfully aware of. But the thing about being aware of those things about your positionality is that, me stating a fact about how it is to live my life may seem like a criticism to a white person or somebody who isn't a part of the same marginalized communities that I'm a part of. And so I think I've kind of tricked myself into having to kindly check people or make people understand what it's like to be a marginalized person through comedy. Just so the blow doesn't hit as hard. And also because, cancel culture doesn't exist for white people, but it does exist for Black people. And in order to not get canceled, it sometimes feels like you have to be really nice and really funny about things. So I think that I've kind of been, I wouldn't say forced, but I've very much been inclined to have to layer social commentary into my comedy, because comedy is kind of just another platform for me to talk about the ways in which I am marginalized or different from other people.
Yeah. That goes into many deep layers, which I guess is obviously how you're able to tap into it so easily. Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I really love that. I mean, like I said, like I'm always in awe at how quickly you're able to make connections in the comedy that you do and make it so educational at the same time. Like, I mean, I know I always learn lessons from you, not just like on a social level, but also on like a comedy level. Like I feel like your ability to connect things so quickly is really what makes you stand out from the crowd.
Thank you.
Keep doing it. It's so
Thank you.
Maybe let's talk about the Sketchersons then.
Yeah.
Tell me all about, so the Sketchersons is a comedy troupe in Toronto. They've been around for like over a decade, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think about 15 years.
Yeah, and you do a live show every Sunday night, similar to Saturday Night Live, but it's called Sunday Night Live at the Comedy Bar. Tell me, how did you get involved in that? I know there's like an audition process. Give us the dirt. Like, how did all of that go?
Yeah, so they typically do like a yearly audition process. And I think what was different for me is they kind of tapped me on the shoulder and asked if I wanted to do a trial process as opposed to auditioning, because my friend Celeste that I wrote I Can't Trust Anyone, Everyone Hurts Me with, they were leaving the troupe this 2 years ago, and for their last show they decided to do a POC showcase. So essentially they had different comedians who are of color perform as a troupe for their kind of like going farewell show. And so like there were a lot of different comedians of color involved. Tall Boys were a part of it. Coco Galore. Oh, love them. Erica Eller, Amar Singh, like just a lot of really cool comedians that I really admired and liked before I did the showcase. And so after doing the showcase, one of the head writers at the time, actually, Marshall Lorenzo, asked me if I wanted to try out being a Sketcherson for like 2 weeks. And so I did that, and it was crazy. Oh my gosh. So my first show, I was already freaking out because like the only sketch I had done was through U of T, the UC Sketch Follies. And it was just a bunch of friends writing shit that they think is funny. So I feel like a lot of our sketches were just inside jokes that we decided to put on stage, which is not how you should write sketch. Yeah. So I was very stressed out about the first show. They were trying to confirm a host because every week we have a new host, and it's usually like a really great local comedian, somebody who has like a new show on CBC or like a stand-up. And that week they had confirmed that Tom Green was
that show.
That was my first show with the Sketchersons.
Man,
I was freaking the fuck out. I was like, what the fuck? This can't be real. It was insane for me. And so basically, going through that whole process felt very affirming, in that, like, even though I was new to sketch at the time, and even though I was still learning so much, and I still continue to learn so much, I think it was really helpful to be like put through the fire, in a way, to see that, you can come out on the other end and learn a lesson, and being confident and believing in yourself when these random things like a huge celebrity hosting a show that you're newly a part of pop up.
Seriously. Yeah, no, like there's nothing like having something totally crazy happen, and it's sort of like you realize you have absolutely nothing to lose by doing the thing, and the fact that it's an opportunity, like it's just it's so wonderful that you're able to jump on those opportunities and recognize that they're opportunities for you to be able to like to grab and go forward with. I feel like a lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, I usually just mean me, but like, so I feel like me, like I would often see these opportunities to perform or to be in shorts or whatever they were, and then I would just totally bomb everything. So I spent most of my 20s being like, I'm never gonna perform, and just like hiding, because I'm like, I don't understand anything about how like the business of it, first of all. Second, it was like so big in my head that I'm like, if I'm not an actor, I will just like cry forever, and I'm just gonna go work in an office, and that's the end of my life. Whatever. That's all I'm gonna do. So my question to you then from that is, how do you understand which things are opportunities you need to go forward with and not totally get scared shitless? Like, how do you motivate yourself and keep yourself confident to know that you are as talented as you are, and like, you're so humble, obviously.
Oh, shush.
but like, how are you confident to like share maybe some of the mental process that you have for these types of moments?
I think it's so funny that you say that, because honestly, you come across as like a very confident, very talented person. Like, you're very ambitious. Thanks. And like you're definitely one of those people where I'm like, oh, she's jumping on all the opportunities. Like, that's why I think it's so funny. I think that we get in our heads way more than like, we need to, especially, I will say this, I think for a lot of femme people, this is true, that we gaslight, or not gaslight, I don't want to use that word, but we get imposter syndrome like super duper easy. And it's so hard. It's so hard not to. Like, the amount of times where, oh my God, so I've written some booty ass sketches, some bad sketches. Cause I think when you first start off, you're kind of just trying things and trying to see what your voice is, and not copying, but trying to imitate a lot of the people that you admire, and it doesn't work out well. And I remember one time I did a sketch, and at the end of it, the blow line didn't land the way I wanted it to. And I was leaving, and I said to my fellow Sketchersons, I was like, wow, that sketch totally sucked. They didn't like it. And she was like, no, it was good. I just think that they didn't understand the blow line, And this guy walks out from behind me. I think he was a comedian. I don't know. He seemed like somebody who was always at Comedy Bar. He walks out behind us, and he's like, yeah, I needed a better blow line. It totally sucked. And I was like, what? It's so rude. Right? Like, so you get comments like that, and and sometimes I think at the beginning of my career, I definitely took those comments for face value. Like, I thought that they were worth something, and like, newsflash, like, they're fucking not. There are going to be so many men, especially in this industry, who we're going to make like these dumbass comments towards people like us, because I think that, I don't want to say that it's necessarily jealousy, but I think it is like, it's like waving your dick around, or like pissing to mark your territory, just so people don't feel confident to do well in those spaces, because they are dominated by men often. And I think that for me, the mental process, a little bit of it is losing your sense of embarrassment, because when I first started acting, I really, really liked watching Misfits. I don't know if you've ever watched that show with Robert Sheehan and Ewan Ray.
I feel like maybe I've seen it once or twice.
Yeah, it's a British comedy. It's a dark comedy, and I was obsessed with Robert Sheehan at the time as an actor, and he said something to the extent of like, acting is just going up on stage and embarrassing yourself, or like, and that's all performance, like just being incredibly vulnerable. And I think the way that you get ahead of those mental blocks, or like those things that tell you not to jump on opportunities, or that you don't deserve something, is literally asking yourself if you're gonna die if you do it. Like, I think that sometimes I have this habit of making things feel a lot bigger than they are in my mind. You make them so grand in your mind, you inflate them. They seem way more important than they are. And when you don't do well, it can be a blockage. It can feel as though, well, this is the end of the road, or like, why try anymore? Like, I embarrass myself so bad that I don't, that maybe I'm not cut out for this. And all those things, all those moments that I felt 2 years ago, now that I look back, they're absolutely nothing. They were tiny little like spots in the greater picture that is this career that I'm trying to build. And I think that the easiest way to get ahead feeling like that is remembering that there's always somewhere to go. If you're maybe not doing well in writing, try writing monologues, and try, doing stand-up. Maybe sketch isn't for you. Or if you're not great at something right now, who's to say that you're not great at it in a year or so? And I think that we sometimes, I know that I'm very much the type of person who I'm very aware of people who are young and doing really well. I'm always kind of checking on them and seeing how they're doing it, or just following their careers. And it feels like sometimes it can feel like you have to compare yourself to those people. But at the end of the day, that's not true. There are so many different ways that, you know, we can make it, and it's not one single path that ensures that, you know, you are successful.
Yeah, I completely feel that. Like after turning 30, because you know, after 30, you can really see things in a completely different way. I used to compare myself to younger people and their careers all the time, which is a huge reason why I just stopped altogether. And I was like, this is never going to happen for me. If it hasn't happened now, it's never going to happen. But then I was like, wait a minute, I don't really need to give a fuck about how old I am. When have I ever cared about that? That has absolutely nothing to do with it. So I mean, you can look at younger people and be inspired by them and be like, wow, it's so cool that they don't have a clue how hard it is, and that's probably why they're just barreling forward without even worrying about it. Or maybe they have a different situation where like their parents can support them like to do this. You know?
Absolutely.
Like not everyone has that capability or that opportunity, and we did talk a little bit about this before we hopped on our call. Like a lot of people do supplement their creative careers with other types of work. Like I have my business, which is a lot of website, like online stuff, right? Like I do podcasts. I am going to start running a course on podcasting because I thought that might be another fun way to use my skills to make money. I do a whole bunch of these other things, and it's turned into this full-fledged business, which is great. It's also hard to balance all of this stuff at the same time because it's like, well, I want to be really ambitious about making all this money, but I also want to be really ambitious about having a show on TV one day, right? Or a movie. So maybe tell us a little bit how you are balancing all of the different revenue streams that you have in all of the different career paths. How do you make it all fit together?
I'll be honest, I don't even know how the fuck I'm doing that. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse on this podcast.
Sure.
But before this whole thing happened, before we all became isolated from each other, I had about like, I'd say 3 different jobs. Like I was doing stand-up and sketch, and then I was also doing a show for Second City, and then on top of that, I was working as a daycare teacher, and so that was my day job essentially. I was also working on a sketch series with Shopify, and it was all so it's this weird thing where like these opportunities, when they come to you this early on in my career, it feels as though I can't say no. And so many of these opportunities were things that I genuinely looked so much forward to when I was just starting out. So it felt difficult to say no. Some of them I definitely wish I had said no to, but I think for the most part, it is this lesson for me, in that I did imagine that my life would be a lot more balanced in terms of being able to work and do things that give me joy and also kind of work on my craft. I thought I'd have so much time to balance that. And I wouldn't say that necessarily happened. It's almost as though these things kind of just came together in a way that I could not have anticipated timing wise. Like I got very lucky in that a lot of my directors were able to give me time off, and shows would allow me to come on later and work as a daycare teacher. I'm a supply, so I can schedule my shifts. That's where I think that's where I got so lucky in having a job like I do in the daytime, is that if I do get an opportunity and I need to take time off, I don't need to worry about necessarily checking in with, the company and asking if it's okay for me to take that time off. I think near the end of last year, though, I did begin to realize that I need to take more time for myself as a creator, as somebody who has to be on in order to do in order to do the jobs that I do. it's important to have periods of rest. And I think that for a lot of young creatives or people who are up and coming, we sometimes like imagine that our schedule is going to work like this, where it's going to be like time for a day job that gives you a good paycheck every 2 weeks. And then underneath that, you're going to have your creative career where you can perform at night and you get all these opportunities, and then you can schedule vacation time and then hang out with friends. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that at all. So I think I expected that. And instead what I got was these weird periods, like 2-3 months at a time, where everything is so busy and I'm getting not that much rest. But then a month or so after that, I'll have an extended period of not working and not getting gigs and kind of just chilling at home and having so much time to fuck around. And I think that that is also a type of balance. And for everybody, our balance doesn't have to look the same. It can be this organized schedule of taking time off, or it can be working in these crazy spurts and then having extended periods of rest.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, you know everything.
I really don't. You're so young.
You've got it all figured out.
I really don't. I really don't. I think
none
I
of
got
us
lucky.
Does.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not just luck though. It is ambition, and it is knowing how and when to push yourself. And okay, the other thing that I want to ask you about, sort of tangentially to this, is like the business side of managing your career and the Aba brand. How do you manage? Like, because I'm guessing you must have at least one agent, right?
I don't. I am so bad.
That makes it even more interesting, right? Like, how are you able to be your own agent, your own manager, your own like brand ambassador? You do like, you put yourself out there. You're not relying on other people to do it. And I think that is a very good way to do it, because like oftentimes your expectations of other people to do things for you can really not, it doesn't meet, right? Until you find the right person. So how do you do the business side of Aba?
Honestly, I don't, I think I'm still figuring that out. It's really difficult to be both creatively minded, but also like business minded. I'll often meet people who are very, very good at the business aspect of their careers, but then the creative side sometimes suffers in that they're not able to put as much effort into putting out work, or like taking classes and bettering themselves in their craft. I will say that for me, it's like, I think it was a learning process, because I didn't start acting and, performing right away. A lot of it was me kind of figuring out what I liked doing, what I liked watching, what I was attracted to. And I think the branding kind of came from that, if that makes sense. I think when you're able to figure out what you like and what you like being a part of, the branding kind of naturally comes with that, because you start to figure out how you want to be seen and in what light, and you kind of figure out like an aesthetic for your career. I think that I also got very lucky, and I've been very blessed to have really amazing friends who make it so that I don't have to put myself out there as much as other people have to. I get really nervous about having to put myself out there. Like, I would like to create more like video content and be more vocal about things I have to promote. That's actually a criticism I've gotten a lot from my friends, is that they never know when I'm having a show, because I'll kind of share it and be like, okay, bye. But I've been very lucky in that friends will send me things. My friend Brandon Ash Mohammed sent me the Shopify call for auditions. My friend Celeste sent me, it put me in contact with Nilu Handa of Yas Queen, who put me on her show. Like, my friend DJ Mausner compiled a list of agents in Toronto who she trusts, and said, look through these agents and call them. I've just been so blessed in having, you know, an amazing community of women and non-binary people, queer people who are dedicated to expanding this community and making sure that we all get a piece of the pie. So that's the business side of it, really, is just community coming together and making sure that everyone is given the same chance of, you know, getting that job or reaching their goal of just having opportunity. And I think that's where I got really lucky. In terms of branding, I think that it's hard. I don't know about you, but like, it's hard to brand yourself alone, like as a company, you know, like as somebody that books things, but then it's hard to brand yourself humor wise, because, you know, everyone is kind of affiliated with a brand in comedy. Like you're like, what kind of comedy do you do? Is it observational? Is it absurd? So it's hard in that, having to figure out where I stand in terms of personal branding. Like Emily Richardson has told me many times, like, my vibe in comedy is just like angry and like has something to say. And I mean, in a way, she's not fucking wrong. I think sometimes branding happens and you don't even know that it's happening. Like sometimes people will tell me,
it can also evolve, right? Like,
exactly.
I mean, I don't know if I would say all of your comedy is loud and angry and has something to say, except for maybe Canceled Court. Like that one does stand out to me.
That is, shout out to Pat. That is very,
it's a very good one. Again, with the inside jokes part of the podcast. Such a funny sketch.
It happens naturally. Yeah. Oh, that was so much fun to do.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like you have like such a broad range of different types of things that you bring to the improv that we do and the premise prov that we do. I feel like that's kind of putting you in a bucket to say that you're only doing kind of angry has something to say. But maybe what it is like that that ability to quickly have a social commentary, like immediately, like it's at the forefront of your mind, and so maybe that's how it's coming across. But I feel like you do strike a pretty good balance with having very opinionated pieces, because you always want to have a point of view, but then also having like weird wacky shit, which I love. Wacky shit is the best. I wish I had more point of view stuff.
No, I feel like you definitely do. I think that in knowing you as a performer, it's very interesting, because I think that you are like definitely with that person in our class who has, like, if I need to confirm a suspicion or an opinion, like you're definitely the person I want to go to. Like, was this person being weird? Is this problematic to say? What, like, you know, like I think you have a very good point of view, and that's the thing. It's like knowing you and knowing that part of you. Maybe we won't necessarily see that right away, because, you know, you do like wacky, fun humor, but that isn't to say that it doesn't have a point of view. Like, you know, like thinking about the song you wrote about dressing rooms. And the
dressing room one for sure had a point of view, but I don't know about the one about being a neglected winter coat at the back of the closet. That was weird.
I love that one. I love that one. I think it's relatable, because when spring comes around, my winter coat does go to the back of the closet, and I do not pay attention to it.
Just stays there forever.
Yeah, and it collects dust. We do neglect our winter coats. And I think that winter coats are a race of people that need to be less neglected.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
You're not
okay.
being political.
That's so ridiculous. Okay. I want to talk about your podcast now. So tell me about that. Was that like a part of you working on getting yourself out there more? Is that sort of how it came out? Or was it more of a, this is a thing I'm interested in, and I'm talking to my friend and I want to do it?
Oh yeah. So basically what happened was I've always kind of liked doing those little like tiny self, or like those tiny like personal projects. I've always kind of done that. Like when I was younger, I'd do little radio shows with my brother. We had this MP3 that could like record, and so we do little radio shows like that. And I've always just liked talking and talking to friends. And after the year I graduated university, I started my first podcast, and it did end after like a season and a half. Just because like it was a tough project. It was a lot more work than I had anticipated, and I definitely think that I didn't know a lot of what I wanted to do in terms of a podcast, and so I left it very broad. And I'm happy I did the project because it did teach me a lot about the type of stuff that I want to do in terms of podcasting. So this podcast, Nostalgique, that I host along with my good friend Ben Sosa Wright, and it's produced by my friend Aiden O'Loughlin, we basically, what happened was we were doing a live show for Amigas Cheetahs, which is Ben and Brandon Ash Muhammad's show. Brandon was out of town one day, and I was asked to co-host, and I did, and it went so well because Ben and I have a very good banter, and we have a natural connection. Honestly, Ben is my soul sister, and people enjoyed it and suggested that it would be good for us to start a podcast. And Aiden was like, I'm going to help you guys set this up because it'd be fun for us to all have this project together. So the project came out of us just being like connected and just being friends who like to talk. But one thing that we specifically talk about on this podcast is just like pop stars of the past, songs and films and artists that came out when we were young and that really shaped the things that we like aesthetically and in terms of music. We're both huge fans of, this is so stupid to say, but we're both huge fans of music. And so we wanted to play
music. Every part of it.
Actually, though, I think that people do affiliate themselves a lot with the type of music that they listen to. So it's a good way to get to know people, especially comedians that we talk to. There are so many podcasts where you're doing improv, where you're doing like a stand-up set via podcast, but we kind of wanted something different where we could learn about our comedian friends through their likes and music that shaped their youth. And so we basically just started the podcast because we were having fun with each other. And I think that we're both, I don't know about you, but I'm the kind of person who doesn't like to network. I don't like to network, and I don't like to meet people who can help me in my career. but I like to make friends that like the same things that I like. So
yeah, more like a collaborative kind of thing. I mean, like you do network, obviously, because you were talking about the community building earlier as being a big part of the business side of your career, and I feel like that does take away the scariness of networking, like traditional networking, if you do think about it less as I must go out there and I must go meet 5 new people and hand out my business card to 5 new people. Like, of course that's scary, and introverts don't like doing that. And even though we're performers, like, we save all of that energy for when we're supposed to be on. It's very difficult to like keep that going, and especially for other people, like throughout a whole evening. But I mean, I think what you're describing is a really awesome way to build your own community, and through your podcast. It sounds like a really smart way to do that too, because it's also on your terms, right? You know, like you get to lay out the ground rules. If you don't want to talk about something, you could just shut it down immediately.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that one thing that I learned early on, I've never, ever liked networking. I remember I was working with this one person who we kind of met under the guise of like we were going to work together, and it immediately crossed so many boundaries on so many different levels, and that the business side and the personal side were way too interlapped, and it felt as though the whole time I was working with this person, it felt as though it was just dependent on networking and getting to that next level of the project. Obviously, you want your project to progress and go well enough that you can kind of just, you can be secure on the business end and make sure that your podcast is consistently getting better. But I think that the biggest takeaway I've ever gotten from any business advice is from Issa Rae, who said when she was starting Insecure, is that you don't have to network up. Like, you don't have to worry about shaking hands with people who are above you. It's about working with people who are on the same level as you and progressing together, and elevating together. And I think
so
that
smart.
Yeah,
she's so smart.
She's
so funny.
She's so great. I've been a huge fan of her ever since high school, elementary school, even when she was doing Awkward Black Girl. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about things that you're doing and things you want to plug. Tell us where to find you. Now that we've talked about putting yourself out there and personal branding, how do people find you? What are the things coming out?
So basically, you can definitely check out my podcast, Nostalgique. You can find it on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you find podcasts, you can listen to it. You can find me on Twitter. Honestly, and you know what? No, actually, I'm gonna take that back. Don't find me. You find me on Twitter if you want to, but but don't expect anything good. You don't expect anything good. You can follow me on Instagram at Abaquann, ABAQUANN. I post a lot of my work there and like the little projects that I'm working on there, and but most of the time. The most important thing I have to plug is the Sketchersons every Sunday via Facebook Live and Twitch.
Okay, cool. Aba, thank you so much for doing this. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I just want to say thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for interviewing me. Thank you for making me feel so secure about myself and my career. Thank you for your support, and thank you for how ambitious and hardworking you are. Like, it feels like you are truly like a jack of all trades. You work so hard. So thank you for that.
That's really sweet. Thank you.
Of course. No worries. No worries.
All right. Okay, everybody, check out Aba's next season of her show, Nostalgique, and it's coming out probably by the time you listen to this. It's going to have at least one episode out. Thank you again, Aba, so much.
Thanks so much, Emily. Okay.
Thanks.
I'll see you later.